What you need to know about the then Skye Bank, now Polaris Bank. In 1989, Prudent Bank was incorporated as a limited liability company. In 1990, it was issued a license as a merchant bank. In 2006, Prudent Merchant Bank merged with 4 other banks to form Skye Bank. In 2015, it acquired Main Street Bank. In 2016, Skye Bank's corporate governance board was made to resign due to inability to recapitalize. And in 2018, CBN revoked its license and established Polaris Bank. Issues involved its corporate governance lapses, persistent failure of Skye Bank plc to meet minimum thresholds in critical prudential and adequacy ratios, Skye Bank's permanent stay at the Central Bank of Nigeria's lending window. CBN's findings, however, were that Skye Bank required urgent recapitalization as well as Skye Bank required liquidity support from CBN. CBN, however, took actions by revoking Skye Bank's license, establishing a bridge bank called Polaris Bank to assume the assets and liabilities of the then Skye Bank. AMCON is now to capitalize the bridge bank and source for investors to buy out AMCON, while CBN has injected 786 billion naira into Polaris Bank. On this regard, I spoke to Victor Ofili of Carry Asset Management. Thank you for having us here. What is your take regarding the issue with Skye Bank, knowing that in 2015 it acquired the then Main Street Bank? Would you say that it beat more than it could chew?
I would say the bank beat more than it could chew. When you acquired Main Street Bank, back then in 2015, it acquired not just the deposits, but also the loans. So that tended to give the bank an unfavorable capital adequacy ratio. So that ratio dropped from about 17% to about 12% between 2014 and 2015.
And now that you mentioned the fact that it had not published its financial statements since 2016, we didn't see it in 2016, 2017, and the first half of 2018. Do you, in any regard, think these statements would be published at any point in time?
No, I don't. With the current developments, since the license has now been revoked, it now behoves on the new entity that will take over management of the company to now, of course, they will still have to publish those results, however bad they may appear to be. They have to publish it over time, but it will be way belated.
What are the inherent risks involved in a change of this nature, knowing that Skye Bank had issues of urgent recapitalization? However, we know that Central Bank of Nigeria injected 786 billion naira into the then Skye Bank.
The risk has been, to a large extent, ameliorated because CBN has assured depositors that they won't lose a kobo. They can go about their normal banking activities under a new kind of management style, And so because of that factor, because of that assurance, we know there's not going to be a run on the bank, on the banking system. You won't start seeing panic because Skye Bank was named a systemically important bank, you understand, because of those hazardous indicators that they noted. But now that CBN has withdrawn the license, hopefully the operations will be placed under the capable management of a new management team, and then the bank the tension as with regards to the fears over liquidity of the bank would have been reduced to a large extent.
Should this be a cause for concern for depositors in the former Skye Bank, now known as Polaris Bank, as well as the shareholders? Because we know that after the press release by Central Bank of Nigeria on Friday, the Nigerian Stock Exchange put a hold on the trading of Skye Bank's shares on their platform.
And depositors in banks are not so much financially savvy, so I don't think they'll be perturbed, as it were, over the non-release of these financial statements over time. They don't usually track companies or their performances. But for shareholders, it was a worry, it was a concern, especially those who were holding their shares over this period of time, that they had failed to publish their results. Anytime companies fail to publish their results, as at when due, it's a cause of concern to investors. that's where we start seeing dumping of their shares. While their peers, the shares of their peers might be doing well, but shares of erring banks who don't comply with the rules and regulations of the markets, those shares will be punished.
AMCON would now have to look for investors to invest in Polaris Bank. How willing do you think investors would be in terms of investing in Polaris Bank?
Yeah, investors are intelligent. They want to put their money into a hole, into a hole that doesn't have a bottomless hole, as it were. So, to a large extent, the managers of Skye Bank or Polaris now will have to do all they can to make their company's financials very attractive to investors. So they have a lot of work to do on their hands to show up the fortunes of the bank, make them turn profitable again, make sure their capital, their liquidity ratio is healthy, their solvency, they have very solvent, so that investors putting money into capital, their hand-earned capital, into the share or the instrument of the bank, would be rest assured that they will get a return on their investments.
Right, then in terms of the prudential ratios and then the capital adequacy ratio as well, which according to the CEO of the former Skye Bank, he mentioned that it was really declining. At what point would you project that there would be an uprise in its prudential ratio?
Wow, they have a lot of bad loans. They lent long-term, they gave long-term finance with depositors' funds that ought to have been channeled to short-term funding. You understand? Because banks are not like commercial banks are not merchant banks. They ought not to lend long-term capital for projects. So, depending on when they're able to recover these bad loans, as it were, that will be a major determining factor. Okay, before things start becoming restored back to where they were before.
Thank you for having us here.
You're welcome.